Hey everybody, Mr. A here to talk to you about screencasting. So today our learning targets for this lesson are, I can define what screencasting is, I can explain 4 reasons why I might use screencasting tools, and I can create my Screencast account and develop my first screencasting idea. So what is screencasting? Well, it's a digital video recording of your computer screen. It usually includes audio narration. You also can use a screen capture video or screen recording, you'll hear them called sometimes, and it's a great way to teach or to share ideas. This slide right here is one of me giving one of my tech tips, weekly tech tips here at Algonquin Middle School. And this one here, the following slide, talks to us about a student sharing their poem that they made. Now, I'm only giving you just a little sneak peek of that just to illustrate one initial point right away, which is that screencasting is not just for adults, it's not just for you, it's for your kids. We'll come back to the idea a little bit, but hopefully you now know what screencasting is. Basically, it's recording your screen. We're going to focus on 4 subtopics here: directions and instructions, flipped instructions, student presentations, and student thinking to justify why we would screencast. First, directions and instructions. Have you ever found yourself over the course of the day giving the same directions over and over and over again, and only have to repeat those directions later when you see students that weren't in your class? Well, then record them, right? You can stop repeating your stuff. You can post them in Google Classroom, and then you got one spot to send kids to in case they need to either hear the directions again or get those directions for the first time. In terms of flipped instruction, we know that the time that we have with students in our classroom is precious. So, especially in the given environment, why do we want them to be watching a video clip in class when they could be doing other things? So maybe the better bet for you is to record instruction of your content, have students maybe be responsible for that by either uploading it to Edpuzzle and having them answer questions along the way, or have a corresponding Google form to answer some questions on, or a Google Doc, so you can get a record of the fact that they watched it. And then you also, over time, are building your own library of your own teaching, because there might be some things that you say or do that are different than maybe another video you can find out there. And it can seem overwhelming to make that whole library, but it starts one video at a time. And over time, you'll create that video that's going to be available for future instruction. For student presentations, another really good idea, right? Students can record the presentation with a voiceover. So maybe they're sharing a slide and talking you through it, or a doc, like the clip you saw earlier on in this presentation. They can practice their fluency for language students, right? Maybe they're practicing their language of choice, or maybe they are reading paragraphs out loud and working on their reading fluency. So that might be another option. And then you can provide feedback to your students asynchronously. And in student thinking, right? They could explain how they solve the problem. We look at the paper, we can see the outcome, but we don't always see the thinking. And it doesn't have to be fancy. We just have to press record and say what's on our mind. So students might be able to share, again, how a bill becomes a law, or explain how to conjugate a particular verb in a language. So there's lots of ways in which students can explain their thinking and use, again, the screencasting tool in that way. Creating your Screencast account's pretty easy. You've got multiple options and tools that are out there. Each one of them similar pros and cons depending. Screencastify is the tool that we normally use for students because there's a nice Chrome extension that students can add right within the Chrome browser. The limitations are it's 5 minutes or less, but for most things that's going to be enough time for students. I use Screencast-O-Matic, even for this very video you're watching, because it has a longer duration, up to 15 minutes, and it's the one I'm most comfortable with, but it's not your only choice. When students use it, again, in our district, we encourage students to use the Screencastify extension for your Google Classroom and their Google Chrome. From there, they'll sign up with their Google account, and they'll follow the prompts on their screen. And students, again, can use their slides presentation and Screencastify to either present their work or even reflect on what they did and why they did what they did. Again, these are the 2 most popular tools, but if you have an iPad, there are other opportunities out there too. Explain Everything. You can use your iOS recorder right on your phone, which would just be able to record the actual visuals. So if you want to show them something that they have to do, maybe if there's a particular app you want them to use, that would be a good way at least to get the video version of it. Educreations, and they're just some of the options you might want to consider. Some final words here on screencasting for me are, I would create a workflow that suits you. My favorite right now is Google Slides and the Screencast-O-Matic. That's kind of how I work, but it's not the only way you have to do it. I would suggest you invest in or ask for a microphone because it makes a big difference if you're not getting the ambient noise in the background and other things. Expect multiple takes, you'll need them, and also know that you don't have to be perfect. These are live recordings, so you're going to make some flubs along the way, so rather than being super perfect the entire time, just be okay with that along the way, and empower your students to create and share their work as well. Within this presentation, there are plenty of additional resources, and if you want to learn more, you can always head to itsmra.com. So, for Screencast, I'm Mr. A.